شكرا لك بروفيسور. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله الحضور الكريم. وبروفيسور علام، شكرا على هذا المجهود العظيم، وربنا يوفقنا جميعا لخدمة الوطن والبلد، وإن شاء الله يعني نكون كلنا موفقين. أنا حسين مالك، المدير التنفيذي لمالك سولوشنز جروب والديبيوتي سي او for the BRTEXPRESS project. درست في تورنتو كندا في جامعة يورك يونيفرسيتي تنمية اقتصادية International Development. التحقت بجامعة University of London SOAS Public Policy. عملت dual masters، عملت ماسترز ثاني في Public Management. تخرجت اشتغلت في المجلس مع آدم في الانترنشيبس حقي والتدريب، ودي علاقة دامت هسه أكثر من 14 سنة. بعدها اشتغلت في social services في كندا هنا في حماية اللاجئين والغادمين الجدد في الاستوطان. اشتغلت في حملات انتخابية، اشتغلت في الببليك بوليسي في الكوميتيز بتاعت أعضاء البرلمان think tanks. شريكي في مشروع آدم جيمبروني درس في جامعة تورنتو، عنده هواية في الآثار، بيزور السودان من عمره 19 سنة له 23 سنة بيمشي السودان. آدم خبير في مجال الترانسبورتيشن، اشتغل as a chairman للهيئة القومية لمواصلات تورنتو، chair of the TTC. He was the chair and the president of the TTC. He also was a director of transportation للبروكلين لاين في نيويورك. اشتغل في الجنرال مانجر هسه حاليا في الرياض في SAPTCO Saudi Arabia Public Transport Company. آدم عنده خبرة في BRT، في المترو، في الريل، في الترانسبورتيشن in general، وبجد يعني إضافة كبيرة لمالك Solution Group as an advisor, as a partner, a managing director, and he's the CEO as well for the BRTEXPRESS project. هنتكلم اليوم عن موضوع أزمة المواصلات في السودان والزحمة. BRT حل feasible للسودان لحل الأزمة بتاعت المواصلات. مدينة الخرطوم فيها أكثر من 10 مليون نسمة ولسه ما فيها نظام مواصلات structured. فأنا عشان اديت النبذة دي حأبدأ بالإنجليزي، حأدخل إنجليزي وعربي. So there is a major problem in transportation in Khartoum. There is no structure, and Khartoum has about 10 million and growing population. It's a growing city. In order to support this economy and growth of population, we need to have a better transportation system. So this is our, this page shows clearly the need for transportation in Khartoum. About 70% of Khartoum population uses public transport in Sudan. So BRTEXPRESS will improve mobility and help accelerate the Khartoum economy. It will cater to about 70% of the population in Khartoum. So if we were to dedicate lanes in the BRT system, we will be able to cater to less traffic. About 40% of the traffic will improve. There is cultural acceptance to public transit. There's a lot of young population, so they will use this public transit. We will innovate. We are not looking to reinvent the wheel here. We're trying to solve a problem and create structure for transportation in Khartoum. A lot of the issues that are happening in Khartoum, and our study, our report shows that every $1 invested in transportation has a return of investment of about $4. So this shows that there is a lot to be do. This will benefit the economy of Khartoum a lot. It would reduce a lot of the health risks to have our BRT system set up in Khartoum, and to reduce traffic congestion. There is the urban livability, the air quality will improve. The slides here shows the layout of Khartoum. It will show how transportation will improve this. We have a report that breaks down the feasibility. That report is also in our BRTEXPRESS LinkedIn account. So if you click BRTEXPRESS on LinkedIn or search it, you will be able to see our report. You'll be able to see our presentation. The report gives detailed breakdown of how the project is feasible. We do have a construction company that also broke down options of the BRT system. Adam will go into details about this. Adam, if you could share, so we level up with everyone about the issues of the BRT and explain actually what BRT is. Do you want to share the video, the 1-minute video about the BRT that we have done?
Why don't we, if you can pull that up, Hussein, I don't have that ready to go right now. But if I'll take over. So assalamu alaikum. معلش أنا هتعامل بإنجليزي عشان أنا بفهم عربي لكن لو أنا بتكلم في الموضوع بتاع المواصلات أكون أحسن لو أنا بتكلم بإنجليزي لكن لو في أي سؤال يعني النهاية ما عندي أي مشكلة لو أنت تقول بعربي وإنجليزي. Hussein has talked through a little bit of the needs of public transit in Khartoum. I think anybody, I've been going for over 23 years and have spent a lot of time on the Haflas. I remember the Dafars and the Tarahas. I don't think anybody here needs to be convinced about traveling around Khartoum. What used to be maybe an hour trip between where I was in Kalakbasangat to Sugarbi has become much longer, although I guess more recently with the unfortunate economic circumstances, there is less traffic. But that's not the objective that we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to get people having more mobility. So very quickly, and I understand that we are tight for time, so I'm not going to go through every slide here. We have put it up, as Hussein said. I put the report. We have close to a 100-page report that we presented to the minister. And you can see it there, so there's lots more details, and I've also put this presentation up if you'd like to review it. But very quickly, we reviewed the different modes of transportation. What I think you're going to find here is that our focus on the transportation is about being realistic. So, Khartoum being a city of upwards of 8 million people, growing perhaps to as much as 15 million by 2040. It is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. And people just have to, anybody who knows Khartoum knows how fast it is growing. But realistically, in the context of Sudan today and in the near future, options like a large subway or metro system or light rail that cost in the hundreds of millions of US dollars per kilometer are just not realistic. They also, we will point out, take a long time to implement in terms of the engineering, and because of the specialized technology, require a lot more hard currency. So you're going to see as we talk about bus rapid transit that this is a solution that is implementable with the current expertise in Sudan today, which means you have to do very little bringing people from outside or equipment. We've also put it in the context of a system that can meet the demand. So some of these corridors are going to carry tens of thousands of people a day. I talked about the affordability, the sustainability. So if you build it, you have to maintain it. And rail networks are very expensive to maintain. All we have to do is look at Sudan Rail in the recent context to understand. It's not just building it once, it's maintaining it. We also have to have a system that works in terms of the neighborhood. BRT, there are enough wide roads in Sudan, not every road, but enough of them that it will fit and it can go work into the neighborhoods. I talked about the constructability being easy to construct with local materials. So everything or virtually everything that's needed to construct this is actually made in Sudan today. Everything from cement to the bricks to the hadid or the metal, all of this stuff. There's a few small parts that would have to be imported. Obviously, buses are not made in Sudan, but most of the material is produced locally. And then, of course, the ability to maintain it is the last one, what we call the supportability. Again, not going to go through this. But this is more in detail in the report. Our review of the metro and light rail, great systems, incredibly expensive, and upwards of 10 years to build. So they're not a quick solution, even if you have the budgets to do it. So we arrive here at bus rapid transit. Lots of examples around the world, over 300 cities on every continent except Antarctica, that have these examples. They're being used in places from Europe and North America, from Asia, Africa, and it was actually developed in South America in the late 70s. And the main reason it was developed is to be able to deliver new transportation routes quickly and cost effectively. So there doesn't have to be the huge disruption. And with the right innovation, they can move enough people per hour. In some cases in Bogota and Colombia, they're moving upwards of 20 or 30,000 people an hour. So that's the equivalent of a metro system. The proposals that we have here are slightly less, well, they're not quite as big as the ones in South America, but could still carry well the capacity we need, especially if there are multiple lines. And because they're developed, the model that we really have here is the ultra low cost. So you can deliver this without the buses. So that's of course a cost, but actually the infrastructure at under $1 million a kilometer, well under $1 million, close to perhaps $500,000. So this becomes much more realistic. And because the maintenance and operations are fairly low cost, it can be covered with the fares at the same level as the current fares for Haflas in Sudan. And we've done a review over the last 3 months of the current fares and predict that at the current rates that people are paying for transportation in Khartoum, you could support this system. So it actually does not need ongoing government subsidies. And as we know, with the priorities and the challenges of the new government in Sudan, there are lots of demands for money. So having a system of transport that does not require ongoing government support is, I think, critical, being realistic about the next, say, 5 to 10 years in Sudan. Here's some of just the background on the capacity modes. Again, at the bottom, we're talking BRT. It's at the lower end, but where we have challenges of corridors with a lot more people coming in, say, from Omdurman or south of the business center, you could look at more than one route. So not only does that bring rapid transit to more communities, more neighborhoods, but it allows the demand to be spread out. Again, I'm not going through all of this. This sort of, look, we did this review. It's much more detailed in the report. And that's why we wanted to share it with you for those who would like to go into it in a little bit more detail. But as I said, basically concludes that realistically, the best options are BRT. And it's not so much a compromise solution. As I said, this is being used in 300 cities from China, Europe, North America. Many cities choose this for the same reasons that we're talking about it for Khartoum. And so I talked a little bit about this, our benefits of BRT in Khartoum. And now I just want to get into a few more details, show you a few pictures of the work that we've done and reiterate. So what we are talking about, just to be clear, on bus rapid transit, Nizam Bus Sagar, these are fully exclusive bus only lanes and you'll see some pictures of them on the right hand of the screen. They have a physical separation. I think some of these are from Lagos and else in Accra in Ghana. There's some new systems in Nairobi and Ethiopia as well. But the physical separation is critical. It means that literally cars and trucks cannot get into the lanes. They are in the center of the road, so they don't block any of the parking or deliveries. That happens often on the sides of roads with people stopping to pick up things at stores. Obviously you can enter them at intersections. So we have some work to do on thinking through that, because anybody who travels around Sudan knows it's a little hectic when driving at intersections. But we're thinking of the use of the harkat and some other design elements to prevent people from entering it. It also works on a series of stations where you pay your fares before getting into the station. So for example, you won't see any kumsaris on these buses. These have a driver. People go in and out, and all the fare and the time it takes to make change, all of that's done at a station at every roughly half a kilometer. So the compromise is, as you know, with a Hafla or Khartoum or some of the large buses in Sudan, people are getting on and off wherever they want, which means it's very slow. It has to get out of traffic, get into traffic. The compromise here is you might have to walk another, say, 150 or 200 meters, so another, say, five or less minutes. But when you do, the bus can move much faster because it doesn't have traffic, and it's stopping every half a kilometer at stations. So what we have done, and you're going to see shortly, is we've done some of the design work. I think Hussein talked a little bit about what the team, and I slipped through very quickly the first slide, which sort of outlines who the team is, made up of local engineering firms in Khartoum, because, you know, my experience, I work in Saudi Arabia, I've worked in Sudan, and elsewhere, you really need to have a very strong local perspective and understanding. We're talking about, as I said, all the materials have to be local. We have to think about durability. So having people on the ground who did all of the surveying, we've gone out and surveyed all the roads, you know, wanting to make very careful that what is being proposed here is realistic. We combine the local expertise with international expertise, frankly, a lot from large public transit agencies in Canada and elsewhere around the world. So the team is really this mixture of Sudanese and international expertise, but driven locally. And that, I think, is really critical. These are just some pictures we've talked about. Obviously, these stations, there's lots of different designs. We'll show you some. You know, you can do a lot. These can be very fancy. You'll see some of these is looking very much more like metro stations. You're going to see that ours is being practical at the beginning in order to get this up and running relatively quickly. And as we said, without the need for government subsidies. So here are some of our, the initial designs for you'll see for your stations. Part of it, everything here, including the roof, and I just point this out to you, are actually material that's made in Sudan. So that roofing is from a factory in Khartoum, and obviously things like the cement and everything are made in Sudan. So you'll see they're relatively simple, which makes them durable, and that's something that you think about when you build it. You know, not having to have extensive maintenance operations. And you'll see at the beginning there being these turnstiles. Again, these are every half a kilometer or so, and our report shows you where we've looked at the engineering and through on-site surveying are actually determined that they can fit, because you have to look at each block of the city. And so we talked a lot about the pilot project. We've pitched one line, partly because you always have to start with one, but also because these are new ideas, and you need to get buy-in. It's all very good to just come and plop a solution in, but what I think you want to do is, as we change in the governance in Sudan, is really talk more, instead of just putting in solutions, is talking to people about this, because wherever you go, you know, there are some people who are going to like it and some who are not. As Hussein said, the amazing thing about Sudan, and we've done the recent work, is over 85%. So since it's 70% are on public transit, the other 15% are walking. So you literally have 85% of people in Sudan are walking or using public transit of some nature to get around. This compares, just to give you an extreme example, to say in Europe or North America, where if you're lucky, 25 or 30% are using public transit and walking. So from a political perspective or community perspective, the ability to actually serve 85% of the people. So you do take two lanes from traffic. So I know there's ACMA, but the good thing about bus rapid transit or lanes, when you put them organized in the middle, is you help organize the traffic, and people will know people are turning, going all over the place. You know, the roads, sometimes two lanes get merged into three. The reality of traffic in Khartoum, by putting a BRT, the experiences from other cities are actually, while it does reduce the lanes, and that's if the government chooses not to widen the roads. We haven't proposed that, because widening roads sometimes actually creates more traffic than actually reducing it. But this actually organizes the lane. So you have this similar, like a median, that does it in some cases. So we proposed a pilot project so that this could be tested, and it's relatively easy to take out. So if we were entirely wrong and people hated it and it didn't work, it works in 300 cities around the world. But that would be. Yep.
We also jump into this.
Sure.
Slide 22 we have spoken to it, like we mentioned with the minister, it's important to also start this as pilot project. During the pilot project, we will hope that the government collaborate with us to assess the feasibility in Sudanese context. Now, the BRT is new to Khartoum. The infrastructure needs work. We need to hope that the Minister of Infrastructure and Transportation works with us to make sure we assess the feasibility well. We would also seek feedback from riders through public consultations. We want to engage with people, and I think this is the perfect environment we're in here, that we get feedback of what they think should be, where the pilot project should be. Like I had conversation prior to coming here that مثلا في ناس يقولوا إنه it's fancy to connect the pilot project to شارع المطار and access to the airport. If we were to have a BRT access to the airport, that's an idea. So having the pilot project will allow us to test what people actually wanted, and that is very important. So we really hope that the government collaborates with us so we could get real good feedback of the feasibility and viability and the work the government is hoping to change in the BRT network. This will be used to decide the expansion of our BRT network. And sorry, I'll leave that to you, the next steps.
Yeah, Hussein, I think you also mentioned that we've just uploaded one of our videos, about a minute and a half in Arabic, sort of gives you this rundown. It's it's a minute and a half summary of the project. So
yeah, I also added this on the chat. So if you want to share this in the presentation as well, that would be great. I have uploaded it to the chat of the Zoom.
So just to pick up where Hussein left off, and we're keeping this high level, we are proposing a number of different initial routes. This is not obviously the twin cities of Omdurman and Khartoum, along with Bahri in the north. There are lots of options. When you're doing studies, you have to sort of scale things down. One of the reasons we focused for the first phase south of Khartoum is there are no bridges, and we know that some of the bridges are quite tight. Actually, sorry, the red version does have a bridge. I think it's Huria, because it goes over the railroad tracks. But that was one of the things when we looked at the feasibility of each of these routes, and again with on the ground surveying of the route block by block. Again, we sort of looked here for the options. It gives you the range of the kilometers, the number of stops. Obviously, they change a little bit. But this is, again, you'll see a lot more details in the report. We need to know things like ridership, so we can estimate the number of drivers, buses, costs, all of that much more detailed in the report, because that was part of our needing to not just evaluate the cost of building, but the cost of operating, because that's critical. Once you build it, you have to maintain it and operate it. So what we've done here is we've looked at, this is KHATIM Street, Sharq ibn KHATIM, and we've looked again at the exact layout as it is today. You'll see the cross section below, and then what it looks like with the BRT. On the left hand, you'll see that there's a weird 2 lanes, but that's, as if for people who are familiar with the street know, that they added an additional street without taking out the median there. So, but we had to do, this is sort of wanted to show this because you literally have to go block by block, meter by meter to test things.
Sorry, Adam, I just wanted to add to this as well. So, عشان نشرح بالعربي برضو ما يكون الخريطة ما واضحة للحضور. البروبوزد بايلوت في المشروع إنه عبيد ختم يكون من الشوارع اللي فيها بنية تحتية كويسة، إنه نقدر نعمل مشروع تجريبي لنجاح البي ار تي. فالخرطة دي بتوري عبيد ختم من لفة مدني لحد النهاية كبري القوات المسلحة. فممكن تقول إنه يكون في مواقف في البلابل، في أوماك، في المشتل. فالشارع عشان يكون مريح للبي ار تي وما يكون فيه زحمة ولا يكون مشروع ناجح، لازم يكون عرض الشارع على الأقل 26 متر. عبيد ختم بيستوفى كل الشروط دي. كان لاحظته في الخرطة بالبرتغالي في النص ده خط البي ار تي حيكون في رصيف باليمين رصيف بالشمال، والمحطه الباص بس بيدخل الناس بيسوقهم وبمرقهم، وبعد شويه نحن حنفتح الفيديو حيشرح الحاجه دي بصوره اوضح.
Hussein, that was good. I'm glad you talked a little bit about the size of the road. I mean, that's one of the things we did on the surveying. You'll see here in the center where we put in the bus, you actually access the stations from where there would be an intersection. So these have a light. We'll have to do a little bit to make that area for the pedestrians. But again, thinking about being realistic, we know what the size of streets are. That's where people will connect to local haflas, rickshaws, whatever, because there will always be a place for haflas and rickshaws in Sudan, even when you build some of these BRTs, and they'll serve as local connectors in a way that happens today, where people will take, you know, I was in Kalakla or Abu Adam, where I often would be on a hafla from Sharda Nubatia all the way to Sharda Lepa, and then you're connecting to haflas up to Stad and whatnot. In a similar sense, you would continue to take that hafla in this one, but with that Sharda Lepa, for example, if that were one of the options, you would then connect. And so, you know, we have to be realistic in terms of phasing. We're not, maybe one day there'll be a complete public transit system in Sudan, but yeah, and you have to go step by step. So this is where we, again, sort of, we looked at it, not going to go into the details here, more in the report. And I will say, when we met with the minister, he was quite interested because they have already been doing other studies about looking about transportation corridors in Khartoum, and these ones match up. So these are not exact because, you know, these require a lot of studies surveying every meter, as I said, but these are the major transportation corridors in Khartoum. Obviously, you can add additional ones. Lots of people are moving, millions of rides, but these are sort of the initial screen, and they did match up with the work that the ministry, Bunya Tatia, had been doing anyway, which was quite nice when you have the minds coming together in a similar fashion. Looking at some of the costs, again, not going over that, but you'll see, and again, in Sudan, the cost of this is Janae Sudani, 30 to 50, probably has changed because this is 3 months ago. You know, we did a survey of the cost of the rides so that we converted those to US dollars to make them inflation proof, so we could, because as you know, the prices are going up quite a lot in Genève, but actually they stay relatively similar in dollars, except in certain commodities. So that was part of the due diligence that we did on this to make sure that that it could be operated and you could invest in new buses, you know, repairs, all the things you have to do, because we've seen this like with the Wali Khartoum, when they brought the buses, what was it, 5 or 6 years ago? You know, they worked great. I rode one of them by chance, air conditioned, very comfortable. And then less than a year later, because they weren't maintained, they were all put in junked on the side of the road, basically. So, you know, we're going through these steps in terms of discussions. We've got, once we get approval to do this, we're looking, obviously, go ahead and get the funds, finish the design. We think that from approval, and again, this is based on the construction teams in Sudan, yani fi Sudan or min Sudan, that we, you know, because the construction is relatively small, you have to put in barriers, but this is all produced locally, that you could have this up and running within 6 months for the first line. You can obviously do more depending on how much you want to do, but this is relatively quick to implement, and that was critical. And well, that's a longer proposed timeline for a bigger project. I'm going to try very quickly, because the video is 1 minute. If I'm smart enough here, I'm going to see if I can actually pull it up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that, but let me just see here on the video chat if I can do that. I don't know if I will be able to do that. Hussein, I don't know, I know we're very tight on time, so I'm mindful of that. And I don't know if I can actually pull it up. Hold on one second. Here's the cat, sorry. I can do it, let's see, right now. And we can sort of, it's halfway there, I think.
Just make sure you click on that share computer sound so it can actually come.
That will be a good thing to remember. Okay.
الخرطوم الجميلة كبرت وبالبنيان عمرت وبالناس الطيبين.
Just share it now. It's not sharing.
عشان هم راحتكم
We can hear but we don't see it.
نظام الباص السريع BRTEXPRESS.
Is it working?
We can hear it but we can't see it.
You can see it, but you can hear it, but you can't see it.
Yes.
Okay, let me quickly.
الخرطوم الجميلة كبرت وبالبنيان.
Does that work?
Yes, we can see and hear it now. Yes.
وعشان هم راحتكم
you could just rewind it from the beginning.
نظام الباص السريع BRTEXPRESS. الخدمة دي عبارة عن مجموعة باصات حتمشي في مسارات خاصة بها تماما، وبيشمل النظام مجموعة من المحطات تحتوي على لوحات إلكترونية بتدل على تحركات ومواعيد وصول الباصات، حتوفر لك جهد وزمن كبير جدا، وأكيد حنوفر لكم باصات مريحة ومنظمة حتقدروا تعتمدوا عليها في كل مواعيدكم، وطريقة الدفع حتكون داخل المحطة وبأسعار مناسبة للجميع، ولأنكم غالين علينا حنشتغل ليل ونهار عشان نخلي الخرطوم أحلى وأفضل مكان. زوروا موقعنا على الإنترنت www.brtexpress.com.
شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا يا Adam. This is very impressive, and I've never come across someone who speaks Arabic and the Sudanese language with your confidence. I'm really impressed. Very impressive.
شكرا جزيلا.
The way you pronounce the Arabic, the Sudanese word is unbelievably impressive. Very impressive, really. Now, this is a very mature project. If you can stop the sharing, Adam.
Yep, sorry.
Yeah, Hussein and Adam. This is very mature, yeah, Hussein and Adam. Can you tell us, I mean, what are you expecting now? Because I think to get to the minister is not a problem, I think. But you said you already have presented to him. This is very, very mature يا آدم. أنا يا حسين الكلام ده متطور شديد وجميل يعني من غير تفاصيل كثيرة. وين السيدتوا في رأيك متوقع شنو انت؟
احنا يا بروفيسور أول ما بدينا المشروع آدم كان في السعودية في الرياض. احنا كان بدينا قبالة ب6-7 شهور وعملنا تحليل ومسح للشارع حق بيت ختم، شارع المطار وشارع ال60. درسنا إنه أحسن شارع يتعامل فيه بروجكت مشروع تجريبي شنو. آدم سافر من الرياض ومشى لاقى الوزير الأول. كان آدم كان هاشم طاهر اللي هو الوزير الأول قبل هاشم بن عوف.
طيب.
والتقى معه في السودان، التقى مع محمد ضياء الدين المدير للهيئة القومية للمواصلات في السودان. كان عملنا اجتماعات معهم، زار الجراش حق المواصلات حق البساط القديمة اللي هي بساط الوالي. دارين نشوف هل البساط بتقدر نستعملها، هل بنقدر to maintain it. We have studied almost everything to start a pilot project. Like Adam said in the presentation, if we were to get a green light ويدونا الضوء الأخضر، نحن ممكن ننفذ المشروع التجريبي في ظرف 5 ل6 شهور من هسه.
كويس يا حسين. خلاص احنا بنوعدك يعني على بيرسونال ليفل وبروفيشنال ليفل. نحن المرة اللي فاتت النكست داي كان في ريسبونس كبير جدا من مجلس السياده من السيده عائشه وقالوا دايرين with this video. Sorry Adam between the English but I promise you we will follow up this إن شاء الله لأنه والله ده remarkable. وبعدين just on a personal note يا حسين، أنا دائما very proud لما أشوف السودانيين so confident. يعني ربنا يحفظك. أنا صراحة لما أشوف زول يعني سوداني متعلم وconfident في كلامك، أنت ما شاء الله عليك confident with a true youth leader يا هو بنقول عليه ده. ربنا يزيدك. أنا I think we will move لكن we will come back to this very soon إن شاء الله إن شاء الله. شكرا جزيلا يا آدم. Thank you.
بنحلم بفضاء أوسع، بنحلم بزمن أجمل، بلاد ميلاد بلاد ميلاد. بنحلم بفضاء أوسع، بنحلم بزمن أجمل، بلاد ميلاد بلاد ميلاد. وطن ممتد لحد حدود